She exposed his family's darkest secret at her own wedding. What the billionaire said next shocked the entire room. I stood at the altar, my hand trembling as I pulled the remote control from my bouquet. My groom's confident smile faltered. Holden grabbed my wrist, his fingers digging into my skin. "Gina, what are you doing? Put that away. Now." I looked him directly in the eyes, my voice steady and cold. "Before I say I do, Holden, everyone here needs to see who you really are." His mother, Lorraine, shot up from her seat in the front row, her face twisted with rage. "This is completely inappropriate. Turn that off immediately, or I will have you removed from your own wedding." I pressed the button anyway. The massive screen behind us flickered to life. Lorraine's scream cut through the air. "No, no, you little witch, what have you done?" The first image appeared. A text message from Holden to another woman. "I love you, Fallon. I hate pretending with this pathetic nobody. 2 more weeks, and she signs everything. Then we're free." The entire room gasped. 400 guests went completely silent. Holden's face drained of all color. His hand dropped from my wrist. "Charlotte, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. I swear to God. Just turn it off and let me explain." I advanced to the next slide. Hotel receipts. Dozens of them. Every Thursday night for 6 months. The Westin Hotel, penthouse suite. While I thought my fiancé was working late, he was with his business partner. A woman in champagne silk stood up from the 3rd row, her perfect face crumbling. Fallon Grace, his supposed best friend. She tried to run, but the crowd blocked her path. But that wasn't even the worst part. I turned to face Holden's mother, who was now pushing through guests trying to reach the projector. "Mrs. Pierce," I said loudly, my voice carrying through the chaos. "Tell everyone about your husband. Tell them about Christopher." She froze. Her face went from red with rage to white with terror in less than a second. The next slide appeared. A photograph of a man on a beach in the Cayman Islands. Silver hair, expensive sunglasses, holding a drink with an umbrella in it. The date stamp read, 3 days ago. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Is that Christopher Pierce? But he's been dead for 17 years. Lorraine started hyperventilating. "Where did you get that? How did you?" I looked out at the sea of shocked faces and said the words I'd been practicing for weeks. "Christopher Pierce faked his death 17 years ago. He's been living in the Cayman Islands while his family runs a criminal enterprise built on fraud, forgery, and murder." "Murder?" Holden's voice cracked. "Gina, you've lost your mind. This is insane." I turned to him, and I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "My twin brother's name was Gabriel. Gabriel Thorne. 17 years ago, he discovered your father's art forgery operation. He was going to expose it. And 3 days later, he was found dead under a bridge with a suicide note he never wrote." The room erupted. Voices overlapping, people standing, shouting, confusion and horror spreading like wildfire. Holden backed away from me, shaking his head. "Thorne? As in the Thorne Gallery collection? You're a Thorne?" I smiled, and it was the saddest smile of my life. "My real name is Georgina Marie Thorne. I'm worth more than your entire family combined. Holden, I've been pretending to be poor for 8 years because I wanted someone to love me for who I am, not what I have. Instead, I found a con artist who thought he was conning me. The irony is absolutely delicious." That's when the FBI agents who'd been planted throughout the crowd stood up simultaneously. "Holden Pierce, you're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy." 2 agents grabbed his arms. Holden fought against them, his voice rising to a scream. "No, no, this is a setup. Gina, please. I love you. I really do love you. Tell them this is fake." I stepped closer to him as they turned him around to handcuff him. I whispered in his ear so only he could hear. "This is for Gabriel, and for every person your family destroyed." Lorraine lunged at me, her hands outstretched like claws. "You scheming little witch. We'll destroy you for this." But she didn't get far. 2 more agents grabbed her. "Lorraine Pierce, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and accessory to murder." Then a voice from the back of the room made everyone freeze. "Stop." An older man stood up from the last row. Distinguished, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He walked slowly down the aisle, and with each step, Lorraine's face grew paler. "Christopher." Lorraine's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" The man I'd only seen in photographs and surveillance images walked right up to me and looked me in the eyes. "Miss Thorne, my name is Christopher Pierce. I came here today to turn myself in. And I came to give you the evidence you need to put Theodore Moreau in prison for murdering your brother." The entire room went dead silent. Now, before I tell you how I got to that altar, how I ended up face to face with a dead man at my own wedding, and how one day of revenge changed everything, I need you to do something for me. If you want to see how this story unfolds, if you want to know how I brought down an entire criminal empire, hit that like button right now. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, so I know you're here for this journey. Because what I'm about to tell you, this story of love and betrayal and justice, it starts 8 years before that wedding day. It starts with the worst day of my life. My name is Georgina Thorne, but for 8 years, the world knew me as Gina Rivers. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment that changed everything. I was 17 years old, sitting in my AP Art History class, doodling in the margins of my textbook, when my phone buzzed. It was my mother. She never called during school hours. Never. I stepped into the hallway to answer. "Mom, what's wrong?" The sound she made wasn't quite crying, wasn't quite screaming. It was something in between, something I'd never heard from my elegant, composed mother before. "Georgina, baby, you need to come home right now. It's Gabriel. There's been an accident." My twin brother Gabriel was my other half in every way that mattered. We weren't identical, obviously, but we might as well have been. We finished each other's sentences. We had the same recurring dream about flying over the ocean. When he got his wisdom teeth out at 15, my jaw ached for 3 days, even though mine were fine. "Mom, what kind of accident?" I was already running toward the parking lot, my backpack bouncing against my back. "Is he okay? Is he in the hospital?" Silence. "Then, he's gone, sweetheart. Gabriel is gone. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember walking into our house in Connecticut, past the marble foyer and the staff members crying in corners. What I remember is seeing my father, a man who commanded boardrooms and negotiated million-dollar deals without blinking, sitting on the bottom step of our grand staircase with his face in his hands. He looked up when I came in. His eyes were red and empty. They're saying he jumped off the Riverside Bridge. They found a note. No. The word came out flat and certain. Gabriel wouldn't do that. He wouldn't leave me. Not like that. My mother appeared from the living room. Her makeup streaked down her face. The police found his car parked at the bridge. His phone was on the seat. And there was a note saying he couldn't live with himself anymore. I felt something break inside my chest. What was he supposed to not be able to live with? He was happy. He was in love. He and Francesca were talking about getting engaged after graduation. At the mention of Francesca's name, my father's jaw tightened. That girl was here an hour ago, crying beautifully. Very convincing performance. Dad, don't. I knew where this was going. My parents had never liked Francesca Moreau. Her family was old money, the kind that whispered instead of shouted, the kind that had portraits of ancestors in museums. Dad, she loved him. Did she? My father stood up, and I could see the rage beneath his grief. Because our investigator just told me something very interesting. 3 days ago, Gabriel went to the police. He filed a report about art forgeries he'd discovered at the Moreau Gallery. He was going to testify. The Moreau Gallery was owned by Francesca's father, Theodore Moreau. Gabriel had been interning there as part of his art authentication studies. And now he's dead. My father's voice broke. My son went to the authorities to do the right thing, and now he's dead with a suicide note that I don't believe he wrote. The funeral was 4 days later. Francesca showed up in black Chanel, her face hidden behind a veil, carrying white roses. She cried at all the right moments. She gave a eulogy about how much Gabriel meant to her, how she'd never love anyone the way she loved him. I watched her from the front row and felt nothing but cold certainty. She was lying. Everything about her was a performance. 2 months later, she was engaged to a senator's son. 6 months after that, I was sitting in my father's study when our family investigator, a former FBI agent named Roman, laid out everything he'd found. Gabriel had discovered that the Moreau Gallery was selling forgeries as authentic pieces. They'd been doing it for over a decade, defrauding collectors, museums, private buyers. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud. How many people knew Gabriel found out? I asked. Roman slid a folder across the desk. At least 5 people. Theodore Moreau, his business partner Christopher Pierce, and 3 others in their operation. Gabriel confronted Francesca about it 2 weeks before he died. We have a record of her phone calls to her father that same night. 17 calls in 3 hours. So they killed him. I said it simply, stating a fact. We can't prove it. Roman's frustration was evident. The police report says suicide. The note was authenticated by handwriting experts, though I think it was forged or coerced. Every witness who might have seen something has either disappeared or suddenly can't remember. Evidence has vanished. This is what unlimited money can do, Miss Georgina. It can make murder look like suicide and make justice impossible. Not impossible. My father's voice was quiet but hard. Difficult. Expensive. But not impossible. We tried everything. Lawyers, private investigators, we even hired a forensic pathologist who examined the autopsy photos and said the injuries were inconsistent with a jump from that height. But every door we opened, the Moreaus slammed shut. Witnesses recanted. Evidence disappeared. Our lawyers hit brick walls at every turn. 1 year after Gabriel's death, the case went cold. I stood at my brother's grave on the anniversary of his death, and I made a promise to him, to his memory, to the future he'd never have. I will never let money make me a target. I will never let wealth blind me to who people really are. And if I ever fall in love, it will be with someone who loves me for my soul, not my bank account. The next week, I met with Roman privately. I need your help with something, and my parents can't know. He studied me carefully. I'm listening. I want to disappear. I want a new identity, a new life. I want to become someone completely ordinary. Can you help me do that? It took him 3 months, but Roman was thorough. He created Gina Rivers, a completely fabricated but legally sound identity. Birth certificate, social security number, credit history, school records, everything. Why are you doing this? Roman asked as he handed me the documents. Because Gabriel died trying to expose people who hid behind money and power. I'm not going to hide behind it, too. I'm going to find out who I really am when nobody knows my last name. My parents were devastated when I told them. My mother cried for 3 days straight. My father tried to reason with me, then tried to forbid me, then finally just held me and whispered, "Promise me you'll be safe." I promised, Dad. And I'll visit. Just not as Georgina Thorne. I moved to Portland, Oregon, about as far from Connecticut high society as I could get while staying in the continental United States. I rented a 4th-floor walk-up apartment in a building that smelled like cooking oil and had unreliable heat. I got a job teaching art to elementary school kids at a public school where the paint supplies came out of my own pocket more often than not. For the first time in my life, I had to budget. I learned what it meant to choose between buying groceries or getting my car fixed. I understood the anxiety of checking my bank account before every purchase, and it was freeing. Nobody cared that I was Georgina Thorne because nobody knew Georgina Thorne existed. I was just Gina, the art teacher who wore thrift store cardigans and rode a bicycle to work and brought homemade cookies to staff meetings. I made real friends. My coworker Kendra became my best friend over late-night grading sessions and cheap wine. She knew me as someone who struggled to make rent, not someone who had a trust fund that could buy the entire school building. I dated regular guys. Teachers, baristas, a guitarist in a local band. None of them were calculating my net worth or researching my family tree. They just liked me, or they didn't, based on who I was when I laughed or cried or talked about my dreams. 8 years passed like that. 8 years of authenticity that I'd never experienced growing up in mansions with staff and social obligations and the constant awareness that people wanted something from you. Then I met Holden Pierce, and everything I'd built came crashing down. It was a Friday night in October. Portland was doing that thing where it rains just enough to make everything smell like wet leaves and coffee. I'd gone to a small gallery opening, not because I was invited, but because it was free wine and I'd had a rough week of teaching. I was standing in front of a Rothko reproduction, genuinely lost in the color fields, when I heard a voice beside me. It looks like sadness trying to remember what joy felt like. I turned and saw him for the first time. Tall, dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead like he'd been running his hands through it. Eyes the color of storm clouds over the ocean. He wore a suit that probably cost 3 months of my salary, but his tie was loosened and his collar was unbuttoned like he was uncomfortable in it. "That's beautiful," I said. "Sad, but beautiful." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "I'm Holden." Gina. I shook his hand. His grip was warm and firm. We talked for 3 hours that night. He told me he ran an investment firm that he'd inherited when his father died in a boating accident. I told him I taught 8-year-olds how to paint sunflowers in clouds. He said he felt like he was playing a role someone else had written for him. I said I understood that more than he knew. When the gallery closed, he walked me to my car, a 15-year-old Honda that coughed when it started. He didn't flinch, didn't make a face, didn't do any of the things rich guys usually did when they saw how I lived. He just smiled and said, "Can I see you again?" We went to coffee the next day, then dinner the day after that. Then suddenly we were spending every free moment together, and I was falling in love in a way I'd never let myself fall before. Holden seemed different from everyone in the world I'd grown up in. He talked about feeling trapped by expectations, suffocated by his family's legacy. He said meeting me felt like coming up for air. 3 months into dating, he came to my apartment for the first time. He looked around at my secondhand furniture, my tiny kitchen, my bathroom where the shower barely worked, and he got this look on his face. "What?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. "This," he said, gesturing around. "This is real. My penthouse has 3,000 square feet, and I've never felt at home in it. But this," he pulled me close, "this feels like home." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. We dated for 2 years. 2 years of what felt like genuine connection. Holden would come over after work and we'd cook pasta together in my cramped kitchen. He'd sit on my lumpy couch and watch old movies with me. He'd hold my hand while we walked through the rain and tell me I made him feel like a real person, not just a name on a corporate letterhead. But there were cracks from the beginning. Little hairline fractures I chose to ignore because I wanted so badly to believe I'd found real love. Holden asked questions about my family. Casual questions, but frequent. "Do you have any siblings? What do your parents do? Are you close with your family? Any inheritance coming your way?" I deflected, gave vague answers, changed the subject. I told him my parents were retired, that I had a brother who passed away, that I wasn't in line for any windfalls. All technically true, just missing the crucial details about millions of dollars in gallery empires. Then, after a year of dating, Holden said the words I'd been dreading. "I want you to meet my family." The Pierce estate was in the hills outside Portland, hidden behind gates and guards, and the kind of money that didn't need to announce itself. The house was modern and cold, all glass and steel and sharp angles. Holden's mother, Lorraine, answered the door herself, which surprised me until I realized she wanted to look me up and down before any staff member got the chance. "So you're Gina." She said my name like it tasted bad. "Come in." She was beautiful in that frozen, ageless way that spoke of expensive procedures and personal trainers and stylists on retainer. She wore cream-colored everything and diamonds that probably cost more than my annual salary. Dinner was excruciating. The dining room could have seated 20 people, but it was just me, Holden, Lorraine, and Holden's father, George. George barely looked at me the entire meal. When I tried to make conversation, asking him about his business or his hobbies or anything, he answered in one-word responses while staring at his plate. Lorraine, however, was very attentive. She asked where I bought my dress. I said a thrift store, trying to be honest, trying to be myself. She laughed. Not a kind laugh. A laugh that made me feel small and stupid and completely out of place. "How charming," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Vintage." "It's not vintage," I said quietly. "It's just used." After dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. On my way back, I passed by George's study. The door was slightly open, and I heard his voice. "Really, Holden? That's the best you could do?" Holden's response was too quiet to hear, but his father's next words were crystal clear. "She's a nobody from nowhere. This is embarrassing." I stood in the hallway, frozen, waiting for Holden to defend me. To tell his father that I was kind and smart and that I made him happy. Instead, I heard him sigh. "I know, Dad. I know. Just give me some time." I walked back to the dining room with a smile plastered on my face and got through the rest of the evening. On the drive home, Holden asked, "So what did you think?" "Your parents are very," I searched for a word, "traditional." He laughed and squeezed my hand. "They'll warm up to you. They're just protective." But they didn't warm up. Over the next year, as my relationship with Holden deepened, his family's cruelty escalated. Lorraine would grab my clothes and critique everything. Once, she literally threw away my winter coat because she said it was embarrassing to be seen with me wearing it. She made me sit at a separate table during a family Christmas dinner because I didn't match the aesthetic of their dining room. She'd introduced me to their friends as Holden's little experiment or this girl he's been seeing, never by my name, never as his girlfriend even after we'd been together for over a year. When I tried to talk to Holden about how his mother treated me, he'd sigh and say, "She's just like that. You're being too sensitive, Gina." Then there was his sister, Ren. She was younger than Holden by 3 years, but somehow more intimidating. She was a corporate attorney with perfect hair and perfect clothes and a perfect smile that never reached her eyes. Our first meeting, she looked me up and down and said, "So you're the charity case my brother's been obsessing over." "I'm Gina," I said, extending my hand. She shook it limply. "I know who you are. My question is, what do you want from my brother?" "Nothing," I said, confused. "I just want to be with him." "Sure you do." She smiled that cold smile. "Girls like you always have angles." "Girls like me? You know exactly what I mean." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I've seen your type before. You latch on to successful men and bleed them dry. But Holden's smarter than you think. And I'm watching you." But the worst part, the part that should have made me run screaming, was Fallon Grace. Holden called her his best friend and business partner. They'd known each other since prep school, gone to college together, started his investment firm together. She was beautiful in that effortless way, with honey-colored hair and the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers. She had a key to Holden's penthouse. For emergencies, he explained when I asked about it. "We're partners. It makes sense." She'd walk into his place without knocking, even when she knew I was there. Once, I was making breakfast in Holden's kitchen wearing his shirt, and Fallon walked in like she owned the place. "Oh," she said, looking at me like I was a stain on the furniture. "You're still here." "Good morning, Fallon," I said, trying to be polite. "Want some coffee?" "No thanks. I don't drink cheap coffee." She turned to Holden, who'd just walked out of the bedroom. "Holdy, we need to go over the Beaumont contracts." "Holdy." The nickname made my skin crawl. "Can it wait?" Holden asked, but he was already reaching for his laptop. "Of course it can't wait. This is a multi-million-dollar deal." She glanced at me. "I'm sure your little friend understands that business comes first." I stood there in that kitchen, watching my boyfriend and his business partner huddled over a laptop, speaking in a language of finance and deals that excluded me entirely, and I felt invisible. This became the pattern. Fallon would touch Holden constantly, a hand on his arm, fingers brushing his shoulder, leaning close to whisper in his ear. She'd laugh at everything he said, finish his sentences, bring him his favorite coffee without being asked. When I finally worked up the courage to tell Holden it made me uncomfortable, he looked at me like I'd said something ridiculous. "Gina, Fallon is like my sister. We've known each other since we were kids. You're being insecure." "I'm not being insecure. I'm telling you that your business partner acts like she's your girlfriend. That's how she is with everyone. It doesn't mean anything." He pulled me close. "You're the one I love. You're the one I come home to. Isn't that enough?" I wanted it to be enough. I wanted it so badly that I swallowed my discomfort and tried to be the cool girlfriend who wasn't threatened by the beautiful woman with unlimited access to my boyfriend's life. 1 year and 9 months into our relationship, Holden proposed. He did it in my apartment, not at some fancy restaurant or romantic destination. He got down on one knee in my tiny living room and pulled out a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious. "Gina Rivers, you're the only genuine thing in my life. You make me feel like I'm more than just my last name. Will you marry me?" I said yes. Of course I said yes. I loved him. Or I loved who I thought he was. The engagement period should have been happy. Instead, it was like watching storm clouds gather on the horizon. Lorraine took over the wedding planning immediately. She didn't ask what I wanted. She told me what was happening. "We'll have the ceremony at the Cliffside Estate. For 100 guests. I've already contacted the caterer we use for all family events." "For 100 people? I don't even know 400 people." "You don't need to know them, dear." She said dear the way you'd say pest. "These are business associates, family friends, people who matter." "What about my friends?" "My family." She waved her hand dismissively. "Of course, you can invite your little teacher friends. We'll put them in the back." Planning my own wedding became an exercise in being steamrolled. I had no say in the flowers, the food, the music, the venue. Lorraine made every decision and presented them to me as done deals. When I complained to Holden, he said, "Just let her have this. It makes her happy, and it's easier than fighting her. We'll be married either way, right? But it's our wedding. It's one day, Gina. Then we'll have the rest of our lives." Except that wasn't true, and I was about to find out exactly how not true it was. 6 weeks before the wedding, Holden changed. The shift was subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. He became distant, distracted. He'd take phone calls and lock himself in the bathroom to answer them. He'd come home late smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't mine. When I asked about it, he'd snap at me in a way he never had before. "Why are you interrogating me? Do I question every second of your day?" "I'm not interrogating you. I'm asking why you smell like someone else's perfume." "It's from the office. Fallon wears perfume. So do half the women we work with. You're being paranoid." But my gut knew something was wrong. That instinct that had kept me safe for 8 years was screaming at me to pay attention. Then I found the receipt. I was taking Holden's suits to the dry cleaner, a wifely task I'd started doing without even thinking about it, when a piece of paper fell out of his jacket pocket. The Westin Hotel. Penthouse suite. Charged on a Thursday night 6 weeks ago. Then again 4 weeks ago. Then 2 weeks ago. Then last Thursday. We lived together in his penthouse. Why would he need a hotel room? My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and called the hotel, disguising my voice as his assistant. "Yes, I'm calling to confirm Mr. Pierce's standing reservation for Thursday evenings." The woman on the phone was cheerful and helpful. "Of course. Mr. Pierce has the penthouse suite every Thursday from 7 p.m. to midnight. Should I continue the reservation after his wedding next month?" I could barely breathe. "Yes, please. Thank you." I hung up and sat on the floor of our bedroom, that receipt in my hand, and felt my world tilt on its axis. I should have confronted him right then. I should have demanded answers. But something stopped me. Some instinct that said if I showed my hand too early, I'd lose whatever game was being played. So instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. Something that went against everything I believed about trust and privacy. I went through his phone. It was midnight. Holden was asleep beside me, his phone charging on his nightstand. I knew his password. He'd given it to me months ago, back when trust was easy. I took his phone into the bathroom, locked the door, and started searching. At first, I found nothing. Then I noticed a folder labeled W Projects, locked with a second password. I tried Holden's birthday. Wrong. I tried his mother's birthday. Wrong. Then, on a hunch, I tried Fallon's birthday. It opened. Inside were hundreds of messages, group chats, individual conversations, all of them about me. All of them revealing a truth so ugly I had to sit down on the bathroom floor to keep from passing out. The first message thread was between Holden and Ren, dated 3 months ago. Ren had written, "The prenup is airtight. Once she signs, we're protected." Holden's response, "I still can't believe we're doing this." Ren again, "Are you getting cold feet?" "She's nobody, Holden. This is business." Holden, "I know. It's just harder than I thought it would be." Ren, 2 more weeks until the wedding. Then you'll have the optics you need for the Beaumont merger. The old money families want stability. A wife gives you that. Just think of her as an employee. I read that message 3 times, each word hitting me like a physical blow. The next thread was between Holden and his father, dated 1 month ago. George had written, "What about after? How long do you have to stay married?" Holden's response, "Minimum 1 year. Then we'll find grounds for divorce. She'll get her settlement, and that's generous given what she's bringing to the table." George, "Which is nothing." Holden, "Exactly." Then came the messages between Holden and Fallon, and these were the ones that destroyed me completely. Fallon, "I miss you, baby. I hate this charade." Holden, "I miss you too. Thursday night." Fallon, "Always. Same hotel." Holden, "Same hotel. I can't wait until this is over, and we can stop pretending." Fallon, "How much longer do we have to wait?" Holden, 1 year after the wedding. Then I'll divorce her, and we can finally be together openly. Fallon, "A year feels like forever." Holden, "I know, baby. But the Beaumont deal requires me to be a stable family man. Once that's secured and we've absorbed their portfolio, we can end this. Gina will get her settlement. We'll get our fortune, and everything goes back to normal." Fallon, "I love you." Holden, "I love you too." I sat on that bathroom floor, Holden's phone in my shaking hands, and something inside me went completely cold. Not hot with rage. Not broken with grief. Cold. Calculating. Clear. I kept reading because I needed to see all of it. The family group chat was even worse. It included Holden, Ren, Lorraine, and George. Lorraine had written, "I can't believe we have to pretend to like this trash for 3 more weeks. Ren, I give her 2 minutes after the ceremony before she signs the prenup. She'll be so grateful to be married, she won't even read it. George, the stupid girl probably thinks she's Cinderella. Holden, let's just get through this. Once it's legal, Charlotte becomes useful. The Hong Kong investors want to work with family men. She's perfect for that image. Stable wife, eventual kids, the whole package. Lorraine, make sure she doesn't get pregnant before the divorce. That complicates things. Holden, already handling it. I've been careful." I thought about all the times Holden had insisted on using protection, even though I was on birth control. How he'd said he wasn't ready for kids yet. How he'd made it seem like he was being responsible. He was just protecting his exit strategy. But then I found something that made everything else look like child's play. An email from Lorraine to a family attorney dated 2 weeks ago. The subject line was "Prenup Modification Urgent." The email said, "Modify the prenup as discussed. Make sure Clause 7B is activated and properly documented. We can't have any complications if something unfortunate were to happen." I opened the attached prenup document and scrolled to Clause 7B. It stated that if Holden died within the first year of marriage, all assets would go to his designated beneficiary, not his wife. The designated beneficiary was listed as Fallon Grace. There was also a life insurance policy attached. $10 million. Payable to Fallon if anything happened to Holden in the first year of our marriage. My mind raced. Why would they need that clause? Why would they specify the first year? Why would Fallon be the beneficiary instead of me, the wife? Then I saw another email, this one from Ren to Lorraine. "Are you sure about the accident plan? That's extreme even for us." Lorraine's response, "We've done it before. It's cleaner than divorce and far more profitable. We've done it before." I thought about Christopher Pierce, Holden's father, who died in a boating accident 17 years ago. I thought about the timing. I thought about Lorraine marrying George 6 months later. Oh God, they weren't just planning to use me for appearances and then divorce me. They were planning something much darker. And I was standing right in the middle of it, completely blind. For the first time in 8 years, I called Roman, my family's head of security. He answered on the first ring. "Miss Georgina, are you safe? I need help." My voice was steady, which surprised me. "I need you to come to Portland. I need you to investigate someone. And Roman, I need you to do it quietly because I think I'm in danger." He was on a plane within 2 hours. We met at a coffee shop far from my apartment, far from anywhere Holden might see us. Roman looked exactly the same as he had 8 years ago, silver-haired and solid and capable. "Tell me everything," he said. I told him about Holden, about his family, about the messages I'd found. I showed him screenshots I'd taken of everything on Holden's phone before carefully deleting my browsing history and putting it back exactly where I'd found it. Roman's face grew darker with every image. "Miss Georgina," he said when I finished, "I need to make a call." He stepped away and had a quiet conversation on his phone. When he came back, he said, "Your father wants to talk to you." He handed me his phone. "Dad." My voice broke for the first time. "Baby girl." My father sounded like he was crying. "Are you safe? Where are you?" "I'm okay. I'm with Roman." "But Dad, I think I've gotten myself into something really bad." "I know." Roman sent me the screenshots. His voice hardened. "I'm coming to Portland. I'm bringing our lawyers, our investigators, everyone. We're going to tear these people apart." "Dad, wait." I took a breath. "I need to know something first. Can you have someone look into Christopher Pierce's death? The boating accident 17 years ago?" There was a pause. "Why?" "Because I think Lorraine Pierce might have killed him. And I think she might be planning to do the same thing to Holden, with me caught in the middle." My father was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Give me 24 hours. I'll call you back." Those 24 hours were the longest of my life. I went back to the penthouse and acted normal. I smiled at Holden. I talked about wedding details. I pretended everything was fine while my skin crawled every time he touched me. When my father called back, his voice was grim. "You were right. Christopher Pierce's death was suspicious. The boat explosion was ruled an accident, but there were 3 witnesses who said they saw someone else on the boat that day. All 3 witnesses recanted their statements within a week. All 3 received large cash deposits shortly after. So Lorraine killed her first husband. We can't prove it. But yes, I believe she did. And Georgina, there's more. Christopher's death benefited Lorraine enormously. She received a $20 million life insurance payout. 6 months later, she married George Pierce, Christopher's younger brother. She married the brother? It kept the money in the family. Very neat. Very calculated. My father paused. I'm sending Roman's full team to Portland tonight. We're going to investigate every member of the Pierce family. And sweetheart, I need you to promise me you'll be careful until we can get you out of there safely. I'm not leaving. What? I'm not leaving, Dad. I'm going to marry him. Georgina, that's insane. You just told me you think they might be planning to kill you. They won't kill me if I expose them first. My mind was working fast, pieces falling into place. The wedding is in 5 weeks. I have 400 witnesses. I want to invite the FBI. I want to invite journalists. I want everyone to see exactly who these people are. My father was quiet. Then he said, "This is about Gabriel, isn't it? This is about Gabriel. This is about justice. This is about making sure the people who think they're untouchable learn that they're not." I felt tears burning in my eyes, but my voice stayed steady. Dad, the Pierce family is connected to the Moreaus. Christopher Pierce and Theodore Moreau were business partners. They ran the art forgery operation together. I heard my father inhale sharply. You're sure? Roman found the documents. Christopher Pierce wasn't just involved. He was the mastermind. And when Gabriel threatened to expose them, Theodore Moreau had him killed. With Christopher's knowledge. With his approval. Then Christopher died 6 months later. Or went into hiding. I want Roman to find out if Christopher Pierce is really dead. Because if Lorraine has done this before, if she's planning to do it again, I need to know everything before I walk into that wedding. My father's team worked around the clock. Within a week, Roman came to me with a folder so thick it barely fit in his briefcase. Miss Georgina, what we found, he shook his head. It's worse than we thought. Tell me, Christopher Pierce is alive. He's living in the Cayman Islands under the name Christopher Morrison. We have surveillance photos from 3 days ago. He showed me pictures of a silver-haired man on a beach, sipping a drink, very much alive. There's more. Roman pulled out financial documents. Holden's investment firm is built on fraud. Insider trading, securities violations, Ponzi scheme characteristics. They've defrauded at least 47 clients that we can identify. Total losses exceed $50 million. Who are the victims? Mostly elderly people who trusted them with retirement savings. Roman's jaw tightened. There's one case in particular. A man named Harold Chun. He was 67 years old. He invested his entire retirement fund, $3 million, based on false reports that Holden's firm provided. When the money disappeared, he couldn't face his wife. He left her a note saying he'd failed her. Then he went into his garage and never came out. Suicide. His wife found him 3 hours later. Roman met my eyes. These people destroyed that family. And there are 46 other victims just like him. I felt something harden inside my chest. What else? The Moreau connection. Christopher Pierce and Theodore Moreau ran an art forgery operation for over 15 years. When your brother discovered it, Theodore had him killed. We have evidence. What kind of evidence? Recorded phone conversations. Christopher kept recordings of everything, probably as insurance against Theodore. He's been sitting on them for 17 years. Roman slid another folder across the table. And he's willing to give them to us. What? How? We contacted him. Told him we were building a case against the Pierce family and the Moreaus. He wants to cut a deal. He'll testify against Theodore Moreau for your brother's murder in exchange for reduced charges on the fraud and forgery. Why would he do that? Roman shrugged. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. Maybe he's realized that Theodore Moreau is more dangerous than prison. But Miss Georgina, he wants to meet with you. He says he'll only hand over the evidence directly to you. When? Your wedding day. He wants to come to the wedding, turn himself in publicly, and expose everything in. Front of everyone. He wants the world to see that he's cooperating. I sat back, my mind spinning. So Christopher Pierce, supposedly dead for 17 years, is going to show up at my wedding and confess to everything? That's what he's proposing. Roman watched me carefully. But Miss Georgina, This is dangerous. If Theodore Moreau finds out, if the Pierce family suspects anything, they won't. I'll make sure of it. I looked at the folders spread across the table. How long until we have enough to arrest all of them? The FBI is already building their case. With Christopher's evidence, they'll have everything they need. They're coordinating with us. They'll have agents at the wedding, ready to make arrests on your signal. My signal? When you're ready. When you've exposed them to everyone. Then the FBI moves in. I want it to be public. I want 400 people to see exactly who they are. I want there to be no doubt, no chance for them to spin this or buy their way out. Then we'll make it happen. Roman started gathering the folders. Your father wants to fly out here. He wants to see you. Not yet. If Holden sees my father, if any of them see someone from my real life, they'll know something's wrong. Tell Dad I'll see him at the wedding. Tell him to sit in the back and wait for the show. You're sure about this? I'm sure. For the first time in weeks, I felt certain. I'm going to give them exactly what they want. A bride who signs on the dotted line. A wife who smiles for the cameras. And then I'm going to burn their entire world down. The next 4 weeks were the most elaborate performance of my life. Every morning I woke up next to a man I now knew was planning to use me, possibly even planning to have me killed, and I smiled. I kissed him goodbye. I talked about centerpieces and seating charts and honeymoon destinations we'd never take. Holden had no idea I was 10 steps ahead of him. Roman's team worked in absolute secrecy. They coordinated with the FBI, building an airtight case against the entire Pierce family. Special Agent Rebecca Valdez became my primary contact. She was sharp, professional, and when I showed her the evidence we'd gathered, her eyes went hard. This is enough to put them away for decades, she said. We've been investigating the Pierce firm for 8 months, but we couldn't get inside their operation. You just handed us everything we needed. When can you arrest them? At the wedding, like you requested. She looked at me carefully. But Miss Thorne, I need to make sure you understand the risk. If any of them suspect what's coming, if they figure out you know, they won't. I've been playing this role for 8 years. I know how to disappear into a character. This isn't acting. This is your life. I know. That's why I need to do it this way. These people destroyed my brother. They've destroyed dozens of families. They need to be exposed publicly, so completely that there's no coming back from it. Agent Valdez nodded slowly. Then we'll be ready. I'll have 70 agents positioned throughout the venue as guests. The moment you give the signal, we move. What's the signal? You'll know. She almost smiled. Trust me, when you're ready to burn it all down, we'll know. 2 weeks before the wedding, Lorraine cornered me after a dress fitting. The seamstress had just left, and I was alone in the bridal suite of the venue, surrounded by mirrors and white fabric. Lorraine walked in without knocking. She never knocked. We need to have a conversation, she said, locking the door behind her. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my face neutral. Of course. What's on your mind? She walked toward me slowly, and there was something predatory in her movement. After tomorrow, things are going to change for you. Tomorrow was when I was supposed to sign the prenup. I'm aware, I said calmly. Are you? Because I don't think you fully understand what you're agreeing to. She stopped in front of me, so close I could smell her expensive perfume. You're going to sign those papers. You're going to smile for the cameras. You're going to play the role of Holden's devoted wife. And you're going to do exactly what we tell you to do. Or what? Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Her nails dug into my skin, leaving little crescent-shaped marks. Or we'll destroy you. We'll ruin your credit. We'll make sure you never work again. We'll tell everyone you're a gold digger, a con artist. We'll bury you so deep you'll wish you'd never met my son. I looked down at her hand on my wrist, at the marks she was leaving. Then I looked into her cold, beautiful eyes and smiled. Mrs. Pierce, do you know what happens to people who threaten a thorn? She blinked. What? You're about to find out. I pulled my wrist from her grip and walked past her to the door. I unlocked it, opened it, and turned back to look at her. See you at the wedding, Lorraine. I'm sure it will be a day you'll never forget. Her face went pale, but she recovered quickly. You're making a mistake. No, I'm correcting one. That night, I met with my father for the first time in months. He flew in quietly, staying at a hotel under a false name. When I walked into his suite and saw him, I broke down completely. He held me while I cried, and for a few minutes, I wasn't Gina Rivers the struggling teacher or Georgina Thorne the heiress. I was just a daughter who missed her dad. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. You're braver than I ever was. I'm terrified, I admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He pulled back to look at me. Are you absolutely certain about this? We can get you out right now. We can handle this quietly. No. This needs to be public. These people have been getting away with murder, literally, for decades because they do everything in shadows. I want them exposed in the brightest light possible. Then we'll make sure you have that light. My mother arrived the next day. She cried when she saw me, touching my face like she couldn't believe I was real. My baby girl, you've been gone so long. I'm sorry, Mom. I needed to do this my way. I know. She wiped her tears. But it's over now. After the wedding, you can come home. You can be yourself again. I don't know who that is anymore. 8 years of being Gina had changed me. I wasn't sure Georgina Thorne existed in the same way anymore. Then we'll figure it out together, my mother said firmly. The day before the wedding, I signed the prenup. Lorraine, Ren, and the family attorney watched me like hawks as I read through the document. It was exactly what Roman had described. If I divorced Holden, I'd get $75,000 and nothing else. If Holden died in the first year, everything went to Fallon. I signed every page without hesitation. Lorraine actually smiled. Smart girl. You know your place. I looked at her and thought, you have no idea what's coming for you. That night, Holden took me to dinner. Just the two of us, he said. One last night before everything changes. We went to an expensive restaurant, the kind I'd never been able to afford as Gina Rivers. Holden ordered wine and held my hand across the table. I love you, he said. I know my family has been difficult. I know this hasn't been easy. But after tomorrow, it's just us. We can start our real life together. I looked at the man I'd loved for 2 years, the man who'd made me feel safe and seen and real, and I felt nothing but cold clarity. I love you too, I lied. We went back to the penthouse. Holden fell asleep quickly, but I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Gabriel, wondering if he'd been scared in his final moments, wondering if he'd known what was coming. I promise you'll have justice, I whispered into the dark. Tomorrow, Gabe. Tomorrow they all pay. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. Perfect weather for destroying lives. I woke up early and went to the venue, where my mother and a team of stylists were waiting. They did my hair, my makeup, helped me into my dress. The Vera Wang gown my father had commissioned cost $50,000. It was silk and lace and absolutely stunning. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. You look like a warrior princess, my mother said softly. Good. That's what I need to be. Roman appeared in the doorway. Miss Georgina, everyone's in position. The FBI has agents throughout the venue. Your father is seated in the back row. Christopher Pierce arrived 10 minutes ago and is waiting in the side room. Is Holden here? He's getting ready in the groom's suite. He has no idea what's about to happen. Perfect. Roman hesitated. Are you ready for this? I've been ready for 17 years. The venue was spectacular. The cliffside estate overlooked the ocean, with floor-to-ceiling windows and white roses everywhere. 400 guests filled the space, dressed in their finest, expecting a beautiful society wedding. They were about to get something very different. I could see FBI agents scattered throughout the crowd. They looked like regular guests, but I'd been briefed on where each one was positioned. Agent Valdez sat in the 5th row, wearing a navy dress, her eyes sharp and alert. My father sat in the back row, his face carefully neutral. My mother was seated in the front row on my side, her hands clutched in her lap. Then Lorraine arrived and saw my mother. Her face went white. She recognized my mother from charity events and gallery openings, from the society pages they'd both appeared in over the years. She knew. Finally, she knew who I really was. Lorraine rushed toward the bridal suite, but Roman blocked her path. The bride is not to be disturbed, he said calmly. Who the hell are you? Security. Now please take your seat. The ceremony is about to begin. Lorraine looked like she wanted to argue, but other guests were watching. She had no choice but to sit down, her mind clearly racing. It was too late for her to do anything. The pieces were already in motion. The music started. Classical, elegant, traditional. My cue to walk down the aisle. My father appeared beside me, distinguished in his tuxedo. Ready, sweetheart? For Gabriel, I said. For Gabriel, he echoed. We walked down that aisle together, and I watched Lorraine's face as she fully processed who my father was. Jonathan Thorne, owner of the Thorne Gallery collection, worth an estimated $800 million. She tried to research me and found nothing because I'd erased Georgina Thorne completely. George Pierce was staring at my father, recognition dawning. Wren's mouth was literally hanging open. Fallon looked confused, like she couldn't understand why someone like my father would be walking me down the aisle. And Holden. Holden stood at the altar in his gray suit, looking handsome and confident and completely clueless. He smiled at me as I approached, and I could see love in his eyes. Or something that looked like love. Maybe part of him did care. Maybe part of this had been real for him. It didn't matter anymore. My father placed my hand in Holden's and whispered, just loud enough for Holden to hear, "If you hurt my daughter, there won't be anywhere on earth you can hide." Holden's smile faltered. He looked at my father, then at me, confusion crossing his face. "Gina, what?" The officiant began speaking, cutting off whatever Holden was about to ask. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Holden and Georgina in holy matrimony." "Georgina?" Holden whispered. "Your name is Gina." I smiled and squeezed his hand. "Just wait." The officiant continued with the standard ceremony language. "Marriage is a sacred bond. Love and commitment. Honor and cherish." I barely heard any of it. I was focused on the remote control hidden in my bouquet, on the projector screen behind us, on the moment that was coming. When the officiant reached the vows, he asked, "Do you, Holden, take Georgina to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Holden looked at me, still confused but pushing forward. "I do." The officiant turned to me. "And do you, Georgina, take Holden to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" The entire room went silent, waiting for my answer. I pulled my hand from Holden's and reached into my bouquet. Before I answer that question, there's something everyone here needs to see. I pulled out the remote control. Holden's face went from confused to pale in about 3 seconds. "Gina, what are you doing? Put that away." Lorraine stood up from her seat. "This is completely inappropriate. Someone stop her." I pressed the button. The projector screen behind us flickered to life. The first image appeared. A text message, blown up huge for everyone to see. From Fallon to Holden. "I love you, baby. I hate watching you pretend with that pathetic little nobody. Can't wait until this charade is over." The crowd gasped. Conversations erupted. Holden grabbed my wrist. "Charlotte, stop this. Let me explain. This isn't what it looks like. My name isn't Charlotte." I pulled my wrist away. "It's Georgina. And this is exactly what it looks like." I advanced to the next slide. Hotel receipts from the Westin. Dozens of them. All Thursday nights. All charged to Holden's credit card. The next slide showed messages between Holden and Wren. "Once she signs, we're protected. She's nobody, Holden. This is business. Think of her as an employee." Wren was on her feet, trying to push through the crowd toward the projector. "That's private. You have no right." "I have every right." I advanced to the next slide. The family group chat appeared, every cruel message displayed in huge text. Lorraine calling me trash. George saying I wasn't worth their time. Wren making bets on how fast I'd sign the prenup. Then came the financial documents. Evidence of the SEC investigation. Proof of insider trading. Records of the 47 victims they'd defrauded. The room erupted into chaos. People were standing, shouting, demanding explanations. But I raised my voice over all of it. "My real name is Georgina Marie Thorne. My family owns the Thorne Gallery collection. I've been living under a false identity for 8 years because I wanted someone to love me for who I am, not what I have." I turned to look directly at Holden. Instead, I found a family of criminals who thought I was an easy mark. "You're a Thorne?" Holden's voice was barely a whisper. "As in the Thorne Gallery empire?" I nodded. "I'm worth more than your entire family combined." "You didn't marry up, Holden." "I was marrying down. So far down I needed a ladder." But that's not even the worst part. I advanced to the next slide. A newspaper article from 17 years ago. Socialite Christopher Pierce dies in tragic boating accident. The next slide was a photograph of Christopher Pierce, very much alive, on a beach in the Cayman Islands. The date stamp read, 3 days ago. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Is that Christopher Pierce?" "But he's dead." "No," I said clearly. He faked his death 17 years ago after running an art forgery operation with Theodore Moreau. That operation defrauded museums, galleries, and private collectors for over 15 years. Lorraine was screaming now, actually screaming. Where did you get that? This is fake. All of this is fake. It's not fake. And here's the part that connects to me personally. I felt my voice crack, but push through. 17 years ago, my twin brother Gabriel discovered their forgery operation. He was going to expose it. He went to the police. And 3 days later, he was found dead under a bridge with a suicide note he didn't write. The room went completely silent. Gabriel Thorne was 19 years old. He was an art student. He was honest and brave and good. I looked at Lorraine. And your business partners had him killed. That's a lie. Lorraine's voice was shrill. We had nothing to do with that. Then explain this. I showed the final slide. Documents linking Christopher Pierce and Theodore Moreau to Gabriel's death. Phone records. Financial transactions. Witness statements that had been buried. At that moment, Agent Valdez and the other FBI agents stood up throughout the crowd. It was perfectly synchronized, perfectly choreographed. Holden Pierce, you're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. 2 agents approached him. Holden backed away, holding up his hands. No, this is insane. This is a setup. Gina, please, tell them this is fake. The agents grabbed his arms and turned him around. Another agent pulled out handcuffs. Holden was fighting them, his voice rising to a panicked shout. This is all Ren's idea. My mother forced me into this. Gina, I love you. I really do love you. Just tell them. As they handcuffed him, I stepped close enough that only he could hear me. You want to know what's funny, Holden? You investigated me for months. You thought I was nobody. You planned to use me, divorce me, maybe even kill me. But I was always 10 steps ahead. His face crumbled. I didn't know about any murder plan. I swear I didn't know. Maybe not. But you knew you were defrauding people. You knew you were stealing their life savings. You knew about Harold Chun, the man who killed himself because of what you did. Holden's legs actually gave out. The agents had to hold him up. Lorraine Pierce, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and accessory to murder. Lorraine tried to run in her designer heels. She got about 10 feet before 2 agents caught her. She fought like a wild animal, screaming about lawyers and how we'd all pay for this. Ren Pierce, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, securities fraud, and obstruction of justice. Ren didn't run. She just stood there, staring at me with pure hatred. You think you've won. You have no idea what you've done. I've given 47 victims justice. I've exposed your family for what they are. And I've honored my brother's memory. That's exactly what I intended to do. George Pierce sat in his chair and put his face in his hands. When the agents came for him, he didn't resist. He looked like he'd aged 30 years in 30 minutes. Fallon tried to escape through the kitchen entrance, but my cousin Marcus, who'd been positioned there specifically, blocked her path. She fought and scratched and screamed, but the agents restrained her quickly. As they led Holden past me in handcuffs, he looked at me with tears streaming down his face. Charlotte, please. I can explain everything. I do love you. I swear I love you. I stepped closer to him one final time. You want to know something, Holden? If you'd just been honest with me, if you'd just asked who I really was, I would have told you. I was planning to tell you everything after the wedding. We could have had a real marriage, a real life. But you chose lies. You chose greed. You chose your family over me. I paused, letting that sink in. And now our child will pay the price. His face went completely blank. What? I'm pregnant. I found out 2 weeks ago. I let him see the truth in my eyes. And I will never let you near this baby. They'll grow up knowing their father is a criminal, but they'll also know their mother was strong enough to do the right thing even when it destroyed her. We're having a baby. Holden was sobbing now, ugly crying in front of 400 people. Gina, please. I know you won't believe me, but I really did love you. In the beginning, before everyone got in my head, I really loved you. The agents started pulling him toward the exit, but he fought against them, still talking. I was going to call it all off. I was going to tell my family to go to hell and just be with you. But then they convinced me you were hiding something too. They made me paranoid, and I ruined everything. You ruined a lot more than just us. I pulled out one final document from my dress. This is a DNA test. The baby isn't yours, Holden. His face went blank with shock. What? Remember that medical conference I went to 2 months ago? The one in Boston? The one you couldn't attend because you were too busy? I paused. You were at the hotel with Fallon that night. I called you crying because I felt alone, and you hung up on me. Understanding was starting to dawn on his face. I met someone at that conference. His name is Felix Brennan. He's a pediatric surgeon. We sat next to each other at a dinner for medical professionals and artists discussing healthcare accessibility. We talked for hours about real things, meaningful things. I felt tears on my cheeks now, but kept talking. And for the first time in 2 years, someone actually listened to me. You cheated on me? Holden's voice was small, broken. You're standing here exposing me for cheating, and you cheated too? Yes. I made a mistake one night when I was lonely, and you were with your mistress. The difference is I felt guilty. I was going to confess. You never were. So the baby has a father who already knows the truth and wants to be part of their life. Felix knew who I really was from the beginning. My family introduced us 3 years ago at a charity function. He loved me when he knew I was rich, and he still cared about me when he thought I was poor. I looked at Holden's devastated face. That's what real love looks like. Someone who wants you in their life regardless of circumstances. You should take notes for your next relationship. Oh wait, you'll be in prison for the next 15 years. The agents finally managed to pull him away. He was crying so hard he could barely walk. But then something happened that I hadn't fully anticipated, though Roman had warned me it might. A voice from the back of the room called out, "Stop. Please stop." Everyone turned. An older man was standing up from the last row. Silver-haired, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit. He looked strangely like Holden, but older, weathered. Lorraine, who was being led away in handcuffs, saw him and gasped. Christopher. Christopher Pierce walked slowly down the aisle. The FBI agents moved toward him, but he held up his hands. I'm not running. I came here to turn myself in. He walked all the way to the front and stopped in front of me. Miss Thorne, my name is Christopher Pierce. I know you probably hate me, and you have every right to. But I need you to know something. Agent Valdez was beside him now, ready to arrest him. Mr. Pierce, you need to come with us. I will. But first, I need to say this. He looked at me, and his eyes were wet. I didn't kill your brother. My father stood up from the back row, his voice hard. Then who did? Theodore Morrow. Christopher turned to address the whole room. When Gabriel Thorne discovered our forgery operation, Theodore panicked. I told him we should shut everything down, disappear, start over clean. But Theodore was ruthless in ways I never fully understood. What did he do? I asked, though I already knew. I needed him to say it. He had Gabriel killed. Christopher's voice broke. He hired someone to make it look like suicide. And when I found out what he'd done to a kid who was just trying to do the right thing, I couldn't be part of it anymore. So you faked your death and ran away? My father said coldly. Very noble. I was a coward. Christopher didn't defend himself. I was terrified of Theodore, terrified of what he'd do to my family if I fought back. So I took the coward's way out. I faked my death and ran. He turned back to me. But I've been gathering evidence for 17 years. Recorded conversations. Documents. Proof that Theodore Morrow ordered your brother's murder. I've been waiting for the right moment, for someone brave enough to take him down. He pulled a briefcase from behind his back and held it out to me. You're that person, Miss Thorne. And I'm here to give you everything you need to put Theodore Morrow in prison for the rest of his life. I took the briefcase with shaking hands. Why now? Why wait 17 years? Because I was afraid. Christopher's voice was raw with emotion. I was afraid of Theodore. I was afraid for my family. But watching my son become just as corrupt, just as cruel as I was, I realized I'd failed in every possible way a father can fail. He looked at Holden, who was still standing in handcuffs, staring at his supposedly dead father in shock. Dad, you've been alive this whole time? Christopher's face crumpled. I'm so sorry, son. I thought I was protecting you by disappearing. Instead, I left you with Lorraine and her poison. I watched from afar as she turned you into a criminal. I should have come back. I should have fought for you. You let me think you were dead, Holden whispered. For 17 years. I know, and I'll never forgive myself. But at least I can do this. At least I can help Miss Thorne get justice for her brother. Agent Valdez stepped forward. Christopher Pierce, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. I understand. Christopher held out his wrists for the handcuffs. But please, Make sure Theodore Moreau is arrested. He's the one who ordered the murder. He's the one who's truly dangerous. We'll handle it, Agent Valdez said. Thanks to the evidence you've provided, we already have teams moving to arrest Theodore Moreau and his daughter Francesca. They'll be in custody within the hour. I opened the briefcase. Inside were hundreds of documents, USB drives, audio recordings. Years and years of evidence. My father came up beside me and looked over my shoulder. His hand gripped my arm. This is it, sweetheart. This is everything we've needed. I looked up at the crowd of stunned wedding guests. 400 people staring at me in various states of shock, confusion, horror. I found my voice one more time. I'm sorry your Saturday was spent witnessing this instead of a wedding. But some secrets are too dangerous to stay buried. And some people deserved better than the silence we gave them. I looked at the briefcase in my hands. My brother Gabriel died because he tried to do the right thing. He tried to expose corruption and fraud and crime. And for 17 years, the people responsible got away with it because they had money and power and connections. My voice was getting stronger now. I could have gone to the FBI privately. I could have had all of them arrested quietly. But then you wouldn't know. Their business partners wouldn't know. Their friends wouldn't know. The world wouldn't know. I looked directly at Lorraine, who was still screaming about lawyers. I needed everyone to see exactly who these people are. Monsters wearing designer clothes and expensive smiles. People who destroy lives and don't lose a single night of sleep. I took a breath. You might think this is a victory for me, but I'm standing here in a wedding dress with no groom. I spent 2 years loving someone who never existed. I planned a future with a man who saw me as a business opportunity. I looked at Holden, who was still crying. But at least I know the truth now. At least I know that real love exists, even if I didn't find it with you. As the FBI agents led the Pierce family out one by one, the room slowly began to empty. Guests filed out, talking in hushed voices, already pulling out their phones to spread the news. My mother came up and wrapped me in her arms. You did it, baby. You did it. My father joined us, and for a moment, we just stood there. The Thorne family, together again. Roman approached quietly. Miss Georgina, there's someone who wants to see you. Who? A man stepped out from the side room. Tall, kind eyes, wearing a simple suit. Felix Brennan. He walked up to me slowly. Georgina. I came as soon as I heard what was happening. Are you okay? I looked at this man I barely knew, but who'd shown me more kindness in one evening than Holden had in 2 years. I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. Felix smiled gently. I'll be here tomorrow. And the day after that. For as long as you need. Why? I asked. Why would you want anything to do with me after this circus? Because you're extraordinary. He said it simply, like it was obvious. You just took down an entire criminal empire. You got justice for your brother. You're carrying a child. And you're still standing. He reached out and took my hand. I've been in love with you since the moment we met at that charity gala 3 years ago. I didn't say anything because you seemed determined to live as someone else, and I wanted to respect that. But Georgina, I'm here now. If you'll have me. I looked at our joined hands and felt something shift inside me. Not love, not yet, but possibility. Ask me tomorrow, I said again. Tomorrow it is. Now, before I tell you what happened next, before I share the aftermath of that wedding, I need you to do something. If you're invested in this story, if you want to know how justice finally came for the people who destroyed my brother, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment saying I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, or tell me where you're watching from. Because the next 6 months changed everything. And what happened when Holden started writing to me from prison? Well, that's something you need to hear. So make sure you're subscribed because this story isn't over yet. 6 months have passed since that wedding day. 6 months since I watched the Pierce family led away in handcuffs in front of 400 witnesses. The trials happened quickly. With Christopher's evidence and the FBI's investigation, the prosecution had everything they needed. Holden was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Wren got 8 years for her role in creating false financial documents and obstruction of justice. George got 10 years for money laundering and conspiracy. Lorraine got 10 years for conspiracy and accessory to murder. The evidence showed she'd known about Gabriel's death and helped cover it up. She screamed at the judge during sentencing, insisting she was innocent, that I'd framed her. Nobody believed her. Fallon got 6 years for securities fraud and her role in the Ponzi scheme aspects of Holden's investment firm. Christopher Pierce pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery. Because he cooperated fully and provided evidence that led to Theodore Moreau's arrest, he received a reduced sentence of 5 years. Theodore Moreau was arrested the day of my wedding. He's currently awaiting trial for ordering Gabriel's murder, along with dozens of fraud charges. His daughter Francesca was arrested too for helping cover up the murder and participating in the forgery operation. The trial for Gabriel's murder is set for next month. I'll be there in the courtroom when they read the verdict. But that's not the most surprising part of the last 6 months. 2 months after the wedding, I received a visitor. Holden's Aunt Prudence, Lorraine's younger sister, asked to meet me for coffee. I almost said no. I wanted nothing to do with anyone connected to that family. But something in her voice when she called made me agree. Prudence turned out to be nothing like her sister. She was warm, kind, with paint-stained fingers and laugh lines around her eyes. I'm an artist, she explained when we sat down. The black sheep of the family. Lorraine has always hated that I chose passion over profit. What did you want to talk to me about? I asked. She slid an envelope across the table. Lorraine kept this from you, but I think you deserve to see it. Inside was a letter, handwritten. I recognized Holden's handwriting immediately. It was dated 2 days before our wedding. I started reading. Dear Gina, if you're reading this, then Aunt Prudence gave it to you, which means I couldn't find the courage to do what I need to do. I can't marry you under these circumstances. Not when everything is built on lies. My family planned this. Using you, manipulating you, treating you like a business transaction. And I went along with it because I'm weak and I've always done what they told me to do. But somewhere in the middle of this terrible plan, I fell in love with you. Really, truly fell in love. You make me laugh. You see beauty in things I'd never notice. You make the world feel bigger and brighter and worth fighting for. I know about your real identity. I hired an investigator 3 months ago because my family demanded it, and he found out who you really are. Georgina Thorne, heiress to a fortune, the woman who chose authenticity over comfort. I should have told you I knew. I should have told you everything. But I was ashamed. I'm leaving this letter with Aunt Prudence with instructions to give it to you if I lose my nerve. And I probably will, because that's who I am. Someone who takes the easy road. But I want you to know that you deserved someone better than me. You deserved someone as brave as you are. I hope someday you find him. Holden. I read the letter 3 times, sitting in that coffee shop with Prudence watching me quietly. He wrote it drunk at 3 in the morning, Prudence said softly. Called me crying, begging me to hold on to it. Said if he went through with the wedding, I should give it to you afterward so you'd know he wasn't entirely heartless. Did he ever ask for it back? Try to stop you from giving it to me? No. Prudence shook her head. Even after his arrest, even from prison, he told me to make sure you got it. He said it was the one honest thing he'd ever done. I folded the letter carefully. Thank you for this. Prudence reached across the table and squeezed my hand. For what it's worth, you terrified that entire family. They'd never met anyone who couldn't be bought or intimidated. You were magnificent. That was 4 months ago. I still have the letter. Sometimes I take it out and read it, trying to figure out if any part of Holden had been real. I think maybe it had. Maybe he really did love me, in whatever broken way he was capable of loving anyone. But it doesn't change what he did. It doesn't excuse the fraud, the lies, the people he hurt. Love without integrity is just manipulation with feelings attached. I'm 7 months pregnant now. My daughter kicks constantly, especially when I'm trying to sleep. The doctors say she's healthy and strong, and that's all that matters. Felix comes to every appointment. We're taking things slowly, figuring out what we are to each other. He's patient and kind and honest in ways I didn't know people could be. Last week, he held my hand during an ultrasound and cried when he saw her moving on the screen. She's beautiful, he whispered, just like her mother. We're not in love yet. Not the way I thought I loved Holden. But we're building something real, something based on truth instead of illusion. And that feels infinitely more valuable. I moved back to Connecticut, back to my family's estate. My mother has been painting again, creating these beautiful, chaotic pieces full of color and life. My father smiles more than he has in years. And my sister Jennifer, who I haven't mentioned yet because her story is so painful, is talking again. Jennifer is my older sister. 10 years ago, she fell in love with a man who researched our family, targeted her specifically, and married her for our money. He spent 2 years playing the perfect husband while slowly gaining access to her accounts and trust funds. Then one day, he emptied everything and disappeared. The money didn't matter. What mattered was what it did to Jennifer. She stopped talking after that. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to. She'd trusted someone completely, and he'd destroyed her. But 3 months ago, after watching what I did at the wedding, she spoke for the first time in a decade. "You did it," she said, her voice scratchy from disuse. "You did what I couldn't. You fought back. We held each other and cried." And now she's in therapy, working through her trauma, slowly coming back to life. We're planning to start a foundation together to help victims of financial fraud and romantic scams. We're going to call it Gabriel's Legacy. The 17 investors that the Pierce family defrauded, I personally compensated all of them. It cost me $42 million from my trust fund. My father thought I was crazy. "That's your inheritance," he said. "Your security." I don't need security. I need to sleep at night. Those people lost everything because of Holden's greed. The least I can do is give them back what they lost. When I handed Mrs. Chun her check, $3 million to replace what she'd lost, she cried and held my hands. "You gave my husband justice," she said. "You gave him peace, wherever he is now. That was worth every single penny." Holden writes to me from prison. Long letters about regret and how he's changed, how he's taking classes and going to therapy and becoming a better person. I don't write back. I've said everything I needed to say to him, but I do keep the letters. Someday, when my daughter is old enough to ask about her biological father, I'll show them to her. I'll let her decide for herself what kind of man he was, what kind of man he could have been. Theodore Moreau's trial starts next month. I'll be in that courtroom every single day, sitting in the front row where he can see me. I want him to look at Gabriel's sister and know that he failed. That justice finally caught up with him. Christopher Pierce writes to me too, from the prison where he's serving his 5-year sentence. His letters are different from Holden's. He doesn't ask for forgiveness or try to justify what he did. He just tells me about my brother. About how Gabriel was brilliant and passionate and had such a bright future ahead of him. About how Theodore Moreau destroyed something beautiful because he was afraid of losing money. I don't write back to Christopher either, but I read his letters. And I think about forgiveness, about whether it's something I can offer someday. Not today, but maybe someday. Felix asked me an important question last week. We were sitting in my family's garden, watching the sunset, his hand resting gently on my stomach where our daughter was kicking. "What do you want, Georgina? Not what your family wants, not what you think you should want. What do you actually want for your life?" I thought about it for a long time. I want to be myself. Fully myself. Not hiding, not performing, not pretending. I want to raise my daughter in truth. I want to honor Gabriel's memory by living with the kind of integrity he died for. I looked at Felix, and I want to see where this goes. With you. If you're willing to be patient with me while I figure out who I am now. He smiled. I've been patient for 3 years. I can be patient a little longer. We're building something real. Slowly. Carefully. Based on honesty and choice rather than deception and need. And it feels like coming home. People ask me all the time if I regret hiding who I was for 8 years. They ask if I should have just been honest from the start. The truth is I don't know. Because being Gina Rivers taught me things that Georgina Thorne never would have learned. I learned what real struggle feels like. I learned who I was when nobody knew my name. Leah. Rened, that I was strong enough to build a life from nothing. And those lessons, painful as they were, made me the woman I am today. Would I do it again? No. But I don't regret it either. Sometimes the worst experiences of your life become the most transformative if you let them. That wedding day didn't just expose the Pierce family. It freed me from 8 years of hiding, from the fear that I had to be small to be loved. I'm not small. I never was. I'm Georgina Thorne. I'm a daughter, a sister, a soon-to-be mother. I'm someone who fought for justice when it would have been easier to walk away. I'm someone who chose truth over comfort. And I'm finally, completely, unapologetically myself. My daughter will grow up knowing that her mother was brave. That when faced with corruption and cruelty, I didn't stay silent. I fought back. She'll know that her biological father made terrible choices, but that those choices don't define her. She'll know that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who show up, who stay, who choose you every single day. Felix has already said he wants to adopt her after she's born, if I'll let him. He wants to be her father in every way that matters. I haven't given him an answer yet. But I'm thinking about it. Gabriel would have loved her. He would have been the best uncle, teaching her about art and integrity and standing up for what's right even when it's hard. I visit his grave every week and tell him about my life, about the baby, about how his death finally has justice. I like to think he can hear me. I like to think he's proud. Last week, I brought Felix with me to the cemetery. He stood quietly while I talked to Gabriel, and when I was finished, he placed his own flowers on the grave. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Thank you for having a sister brave enough to finish what you started." That's when I knew. That's when I knew Felix was someone I could build a life with. Not because he was rich or poor, not because he said the right things or played the right role, but because he understood what mattered. He honored the people I loved. He saw me completely and chose me anyway. That's what real love looks like. So here's what I want you to take away from my story. Never let anyone make you smaller than you are. Not for love, not for acceptance, not for anything. The right people will love you at your full height, standing on mountains they can't even see. And if someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't make excuses. Don't justify cruelty. Don't convince yourself that love means enduring abuse. Real love is kind. Real love is honest. Real love makes you feel bigger, not smaller. I wasted 2 years on someone who saw me as a business transaction. But those 2 years taught me exactly what I don't want. And sometimes that's just as valuable as knowing what you do want. The truth will set you free. But first, it might destroy everything you thought you knew. And sometimes, that's exactly what needs to happen. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own life and relationships, I want you to do something for me. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they know. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, so I know you were here for this journey. Subscribe to this channel because there are more stories coming. Stories about justice, transformation, resilience, and the power of choosing truth over comfort. And remember, you are not defined by what happens to you. You're defined by how you respond to it. I could have stayed silent. I could have walked away quietly, let the Pierce family continue destroying lives. But I chose to fight. I chose to expose them. I chose justice over peace. And I would make that choice again every single time. My daughter kicks, reminding me she's there. Reminding me that the future is waiting. That new life comes from the ashes of old pain. I place my hand on my stomach and make her a promise. You will never have to hide who you are. You will never have to make yourself small for anyone. You will grow up knowing that your mother fought for truth, for justice, for integrity. And you will be brave because bravery is in your blood. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here, for witnessing this journey from deception to truth, from hiding to standing in full light. I'm Georgina Thorne, and I'm finally home. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and never, ever let anyone dim your light. The world needs you shining at full brightness, standing tall on mountains they don't even know exist. Now go out there and be brave. You've got this. And I've got you, Mr. Hearthline.